All right. Thank you guys for joining. We're going to be covering the fundamentals of the HKS admissions process. Look, we're in the beginning of October. Many of you are already kind of in deep into this process. We're going to have another webinar probably next week on some of the essays. I think we're going to have another webinar on the other essays, and we're going to have another webinar, I think, on tying everything together. I think letters of recommendation, resume, and all that good stuff. So my goal on these webinars is to really give you all the tools and tricks, the tips, the hacks that's going to allow you to get through probably one of the most difficult applications out there on the in public policy, in the world of public policy, specifically in terms of the essays and just all the requirements. It is no joke. It could take people quite a while to get through it, and I just don't want you to give up. So I want to give you guys as much information up front. So most important thing I ask of you guys is ask me questions. Please ask me questions. I do not want to be in a position where I'm just kind of talking to you and it's not interactive. And since I can't see you guys, this is the best I can do is ask me questions. All right, guys? So let's get into it. My background in terms of why I feel I'm qualified to deliver this presentation to you is I went to the Kennedy School. As you guys can see, I'm a lawyer by background. Went to the Kennedy School about a little under 10 years ago. Was a CPL fellow, so I received a full ride scholarship to the Kennedy School. I also was on the selection committee of the fellowship that I received. So I'm familiar with the interview process. I'm familiar with the selection process itself. So I did that for about 2 years. And after that, I was on the Alumni Council to pay it forward as a co-chair of the Alumni Council for the Center for Public Leadership. So have been and continuously am involved in the Kennedy School. It was a huge part of my life. I did it when I was in my mid-30s as kind of like a career pivot. And so it was a very, very remarkable, awesome experience that I had while I was there. All right, guys. So I also took all that I've learned helping people apply to the Kennedy School years before I went and years after and created the Kennedy School Admissions Master Guide. We're in the second edition now, which is going to be released shortly. And I can tell you that there is no book, no place in the world that is as comprehensive as this guide in terms of helping with everything you need to know about the specific school and in terms of the 4 different master's degrees that you can get there, the MPID, the MPA, the MPP, and the mid-career MPA. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about this, but a lot of the information that I'm presenting to you here on this presentation comes from this guidebook. All right, without further ado, let's jump right into it. What are the main pain points that people are seeing in the admissions process? Number one is not knowing which policy degree is best for them to serve their career goals, right? Not only which one of the policy degrees, I just mentioned 4 of them, right, in terms of the MPP and the MPA and different variants of it, but which school also. Now, we are obviously talking about the Kennedy School, but there's a number of schools that have policy degrees that may be better suited for you, whether it's Columbia, Princeton, London School of Economics, Cambridge, Oxford, Yale, the Jackson School, which has been up and coming. So there's quite a few schools. Some of them have these accelerated 1-year programs. Some of them are 2 years. Some of them are very experiential learning. Some of them are very in-depth and theoretical. So it really depends on what you want to get out of it. The confusion about how to craft a unique narrative to really allow you to stand out and be a standout applicant, and which we will talk about in terms of how difficult it is to get into schools like the Kennedy School. It is quite competitive. So you want to make sure that you have the best application possible. Lacking lack of support in terms of mapping out the testing strategy, recommendations, and programs. Sometimes you can waive out of the test. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have a bunch of different recommenders. Sometimes you're kind of stuck between 1 or 2, and what do you do, right? All that kind of stuff. So trying to figure out how all of that kind of comes together. Difficulty kind of creating a resume, designing your profile if you're applying this year or next year. The compelling essays, so not just the story that you're going to have, but how you're going to put it down for each part of the application, because there's an adversity statement, a perspective statement, a personal history statement, a career essay, a professional contribution, a bio statement, a background statement. There's so many different parts of this application, so you want to make sure that you're putting each part in the right place and addressing any weaknesses, right? Because there's also an optional essay if you have any weaknesses. And then finally, last but not least, how do you balance all of that with professional endeavors? Because I would imagine over 90% plus people who are going to be applying to the Kennedy School are going to be in either probably working, right? Even if you're an MPP, you're probably in the middle of a job, either 1 year or 2 years into it, you are working. So you've got to balance work with everything else, all right? So these are kind of the pain points that people have constantly faced in this process. Now, why select HKS? Now that you've decided that's like HKS is the right place for you, why? Well, let's just say that you're really interested in HKS and you want to decide. Here are some things to kind of think about that really helped move the needle for me. I'll be honest, I only applied to the Kennedy School. I didn't care about any other school. I'd already gone to Berkeley for law. I'd already gone to Cambridge in England for international relations. So I really didn't care. For me, it was Harvard or bust, because if I didn't go to Harvard, it wasn't going to crazy shift my life because I already had all the credentials I needed. So I wanted it more for the experience, obviously for the brand name recognition. And then as I dug deeper, I found that there's a lot more than just the brand name. You've got the mission, really about public service, which was very important to me. I had applied when I was working in the US government as an international lawyer and then applied to the Kennedy School. So it was kind of a nice linear trajectory for me. So I wanted a school that had a very deep commitment in public service. There's a lot of great leadership within the school itself in terms of the professors, the deans, and so forth. And you're seeing what they're doing right now in terms of the administration. They've really stood up to it. 56% of the Kennedy School is international students. So in the end of the day, that is extremely important to the future of the organization of the school, to have really profound leaders that are leading it, that are at the helm, that you can learn from. The alumni network is phenomenal, bar none. It was something that I constantly tap into, not just as friends and mentors and, you know, like part of a circle of trust, but just great people and people that will offer you great opportunities in the future. So the alumni is just unparalleled and better than any other school I'd ever been to. The curriculum is incredibly flexible, especially if you're an MPA student. It's less flexible if you're an MPP, but as a second year MPP, you get a little bit more flexibility. I love that because I really kind of created my own version of what I wanted to see in the degree. The pedagogy, the interdisciplinary educational experience that you get. So you're getting a lot of different perspectives coming together. There's experiential learning opportunities. Like one of the things I did is I took a class on operations management, and part of that course, we had to actually advise a real company in terms of operations and creating efficiencies. So in the end of the day, a super important aspect of how everything kind of comes together. And that really helped me because afterwards I started getting more involved in operations. And then finally, the reputation, which was an obvious, and that was something that I was already thinking about before. But not only is the reputation phenomenal to be at the Kennedy School in terms of the luminaries that have graduated from there, but also you get access to the whole Harvard community. So I took classes at the business school. I audited class at the law school. I knew a lot of people at the undergrad, at different at the School of Education. So it very much felt like a combined Harvard one perspective. All right. So these are things that you can always reference as to why the Kennedy School really stands out for you. All right. Key qualities HKS looks for in candidates. I'll quickly go through this. Take a look and read it. Leadership and character fit, absolutely, mission critical. That concept of integrity, the concept of really being dedicated to public service, which really is surfaced in terms of your application essays, resume, letters of recommendation, right? Professional experience, very, very important. Even if you're an MPP, if you have professional experience, they want it to stand out. And typically they want at least 2 years of professional experience. So that really is something of substance, right? You've got the commitment to public service. We already talked about that. And that's, again, demonstrating your essays and your resume. You've got academic record. So again, your transcripts. I've actually worked with clients that didn't have the most stellar academic record, and they were able to showcase their academic aptitude through standardized testing to kind of offset their lower GPA, and vice versa, having a great GPA but a lower standardized score, which is kind of where I fell. Didn't have a very good GRE, but I had a really good undergraduate grades, so that helped me from that perspective. But you want to show that you're going to be able to excel in the program. High English proficiency, obviously, whether you're an American or you're international, you need to show that through the TOEFL and the IELTS scores. They haven't gone into interviews yet, but I would not be surprised at some point if they're going to start using AI for interviewing at the Kennedy School. So everybody has to have an interview of some sort so that they can really test your English and see who you are, your character, your ability to get along with other people, your interpersonal skills, all the future of learning and the future being future ready, having those strong communication skills. And then finally, vision, career goals, why HKS, kind of it all coming together as to this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is where I want to go, and this is why HKS is going to help me get to where I want to go. So this is what the school is looking for in their candidates. All right. Let me know if there's any questions at all, but yeah, feel free to do that. Oh, we've got actually a question. I was blitzing through here. How would I go about choosing the right program? I don't have much experience in public policy, but I'm looking to pivot in my career. Great question, Anna. The reality is you need to look at your level of experience. You need to look at your age, essentially, which falls into your level of experience, but your age. And then you want to see like how flexible you want the curriculum to be. Do you want it to be very structured? Do you want it to be more flexible? Do you want it to be very quantitative? Or do you want it to be maybe something that you kind of create in your own way? Maybe it's more leadership focused and so forth. These are different things that you need to think about. Also, other things that you need to think about, the alumni network, the cost, the location, the type of resources it has. Where is the alumni community strongest? Is it strong in your respective country? Is it not? These are all factors that fall into picking the right school and then picking the right program. As I said, it comes down to experience and really what you want to get out of the program. Again, if you have 2 years of experience, the MPP is the only way to go. If you have 10 years experience, then probably the mid-career. If you have 7 years experience, but you've been pursuing a graduate degree, then the MPA is the way to go. If you really are hyper-focused on the quant side of things, maybe then this the MPA ID, even if you want to do hardcore international development or something tangential to international development. Okay, so these are just some factors to think there, but great question. Why is it so highly selective? Well, they get a lot of outstanding applications, right? They have a lot of diverse credentials with the people that are applying, and they want to make the class as diverse as possible, even though diversity, as we know, has become a taboo thing. But still, they want to pack the class with some people that have backgrounds in consulting, some people that have backgrounds in energy, somebody that has a background in government, local government, state government, federal government, national government, people that have had a political trajectory, people that maybe even the private sector that want to go in the public sector. So they really want to kind of like have a melange. And so there's people that have very diverse credentials, and that's what makes it more selective, because if they have too much of one, then they have to then they start to think about how they can offset that with other people. I believe the school has quotas, even though they may not admit it, but they probably do. They're not going to have a class of 1,000 students and 800 people of the Indian subcontinent, like from South Asia, right? Or China or the Middle East, right? They need to have some kind of diversity. So they're going to be spaces limited based on nationality, sector, experience, background. It's just the way it's going to work, is that's how it is. So it becomes selective. If they have too much of one country or too much of one sector of experience, it's going to be more competitive. The test scores, especially for the people that can't wait up out of it, so people are going to have higher test scores. There's increasing competition, even though now, because of the international student dilemma, there's been a little bit less competition, but that's being offset by U.S. citizens. I don't know if you've noticed, but for the mid-career program, for example, they created a new scholarship. I think it's called the American Service Fellowship or something to that effect, and they're giving 50 scholarships to people who were in public service or the military, full scholarship. So that's 50 people that probably wouldn't have applied that now are going to apply, and they're going to get funding. So that fills up the class to offset the international aspect. And then finally, the academic grades and the academic transcripts. Not the be-all, end-all, but a factor that still needs to be put in there because people are going to have higher GPAs. All right. So we guess it's about 15% acceptance. They don't give a hard and fast number because the MPID probably is less than 10%. The MPP is probably like 12%, 15%. And the mid-career program and the MPA2 probably is near 20%, maybe even higher of admissions. So they kind of, if you kind of average it out, I would say to be on the safe side, about 15% chance of admission, which is about one in what? I can't do the math. That's like 1 in 6, 1 in 7 people are accepted. All right. How to research the Kennedy School. You've got their website, Instagram, so that you can get like really like hot off the press information. Obviously their website, but that's just low-hanging fruit. I wouldn't over-index on that. The school blog, I love it. It's excellent, right? I can't believe I didn't write this. Our freaking guide that I created, love of God, I don't even know why I put it in there, but I'll put there next time. But we've got the guide that I created that has a ton of information from the school blog. So you don't have to go in there fish for information. I have it all in one place. Attending the information sessions, which is fantastic and super important. Um, Virtual tours, they're virtual. If you can visit the campus, audit a class, speak to students, walk around and kind of take the whole experience in, because you're going to reference that in your application, right? Schedule campus visits. If they don't have something like an orientation day, or not orientation day, but a fall visit, and you can't make it, then you can just try to go there and see if there's somebody who can take you on a walkabout. Maybe an alumni, or not alumni, but a current student can do that for you. Take some courses like executive education courses. We're going to talk a little bit about that, so you can kind of socialize the idea of what HKS, the experience, is about. Obviously, like I said, talk to current students and alum. Ask questions. And if you're like, well, where am I going to find these guys? Get on LinkedIn. Find whoever graduated from there. Send them a soft message. Say, listen, I'm applying to the Kennedy School. I would love to meet somebody. If not there, I just signed up right now as an alum to speak to future students. I just put it out there. So they also have that ability as well. All right. So these are just some ways to kind of think about it. And my colleague just posted the link to the book right there, righttrackadmissions.com/Kennedy School. So you just click on that and you're going to get the guide there, and then everything you need to know about the Kennedy School. Literally, it's about 130 plus pages of everything that you'll ever need to know about that school. All right. Should you apply now or postpone for future cycles? It's a great question, right? These are some of the things. Your test results, if you have to take the test, think about if you're not getting the scores you need and you just won't apply and you need to retake it, okay, fine, retake it. But see if you can waive out of it. If you can't, and you're really bombing the GRE or the GMAT or whatever it is that you're required to take, or the TOEFL, then yeah, wait a year and reapply. But hopefully that year will really allow you to excel. Years of professional experience. Well, Hamada, I've only got 1 year experience, but I want to apply for the MPP. What do I do? Maybe you wait that year. Hey, Hamada, I've got 7 years experience. I know that the mid-career requires 8. I haven't done another graduate degree or working towards one, so I don't qualify for the MPA 2. And I clearly don't qualify for the mid-career. Okay, then wait a year and then basically apply there, right? Market and career, personal timing. Maybe you say, look, I've just started a new job. This is a really cool opportunity. Whatever it is, I want to wait a year, get some more experience. You can do that, right? And then come back and reapply. I always say apply. What's the loss? Try it out. You don't get in, you don't get in. You've got another year of experience, then you reapply again. They're not going to ding you for that. In fact, they're probably going to look at you and be like, wow, this person's that committed and determined. Just keep in mind, you can apply, I believe, 3 times in 5 years, or 3 times, no, actually 3 times, either it's 3 times in 5 years or 3 times forever. So you don't want to kind of just throw in crap applications year after year. You have to know that you can only apply 3 times. If you apply a 4th, they just will not read your application. All right. The strength of the recommenders, I don't think that's going to be a reason to postpone. That just means you got to go out there and find better recommenders. But let's just say you just cannot. It may be one. English proficiency, if applicable, you just are not scoring well in the TOEFL and so forth. I don't know if you can really fire up your English in a year. You really have to be determined to do that. If you can, do it, because your English needs to be pretty damn good. I really do not recommend people to go to the Kennedy School with English that is really subpar, because you just won't maximize it. People won't understand you. You won't understand them. You won't understand the curriculum. It's not going to help you. You really want to go in there with a good level of proficiency. It's Harvard. It is in English. You do want to, make sure that you maximize that experience, because it is expensive. Financial aid and funding, you're going to say, hey, listen, I want to apply, but I don't think I have the funding to do it. Work hard to get the funding. Maybe you got admitted and you can get funding. That's fair. Maybe then you defer, but at least you applied. This question's more about if you should postpone. But let's just say there's no way you're going to get funding merit-based from the school. There's just no opportunity. Then yeah, wait, save some money, and then apply. It is a possibility, though I think the degree is worth it, especially if you don't have other degrees there. Goals and application preparation, you don't have the time to put together the application, which is why you come to people like us, where we can fast track it in literally 70% faster than if you try to do it alone, if not more. Like, we know exactly how to target this process, how to develop the story, how to help you draft the essays and think through each essay, how to think through every component. We can fast track that probably in about 4 weeks, rather than have you kind of sweat about it for 8 weeks or 12 weeks trying to balance everything together. And then finally, demonstrated interest. You don't have enough interest there. So there's something called the PLC, which is the professional leadership course. think that's what it stands for. And the idea there is that if you take that course, it's about 6 to 8 months. It ends with a capstone. It's a really interesting course from what I hear online. Then it's really a fast track to help you get into the mid-career program. So that's something else. Maybe like, I'm going to defer, take this course, then apply. You could also do that as well. All right. Here's a couple of the degrees you've got, just to kind of think through the different degree programs. You've got, as we talked about, the mid-career program, which is the one I did, 1 year. It's more advanced leadership. You have to have minimum 7 years, mostly more like 8 years now. So it's kind of the mid-career. It's customizable. So I kind of created my own curriculum, but I think there has to be a quantitative component, a public policy, I think, component, something like that. And I can't remember the third component, maybe a management or leadership course. So you've got to fill those buckets, which is super easy to do because that's the main curriculum they have. And then once you've satisfied that, you can pretty much take any course that you want. And then finally, typical students is established professionals looking for leadership growth or even a career pivot. Anne asks another question. Is there a way I can use an optional essay to explain my low GRE? It's not that bad, but it's not optimal and I don't qualify to waive it. Phenomenal question. Excellent question. Yes, the optional essay is exactly that. You want to use that opportunity there to describe why you didn't do well. Maybe you didn't have the time. Maybe you're just not good at standardized testing. Maybe English was your second language, but I probably wouldn't use that one too much because then they're going to be like, okay, then she doesn't qualify. So I would say it's usually time, and usually standardized testing is not something I'm very good at. But here's where I've excelled. I've got all these promotions. I have this phenomenal GPA. I have done this kind of research. I've done this type of capstone. I believe those are better indicators of my ability to excel and exceed expectations for your school rather than the GRE. And that's kind of what I wrote. I had a very mediocre GRE score. And I said, look, I took the SAT in college. I didn't do well, but I graduated top of my class at UCLA. I took the LSAT. I didn't do well. I got into UCLA and I did well. Not UCLA, UC Berkeley for law, and I did well. So therefore, I'm taking the GRE. I didn't do well, but I'm confident that I'm going to be able to excel as a student at your school based on all my academic capabilities and aptitude, as well as professional experiences and so forth. And that's really what you put in the optional statement. So great question, and that's exactly what you use the optional statement for. We've got the MPA 2, right? It's a 2-year program, more for public service and leadership. It's not specified, but it's valued. In fact, while it's not specified, it's typically probably 7 to 8 years, and you're basically having already done a degree. You're in like a typical student professional aiming for public service, and with a graduate degree, as you can see, I wrote down there, with a graduate degree, or you're working towards a graduate degree, because you don't want to be in a situation, they want someone with that experience so they can hit the ground running in the 2 years there, okay? It's not a super applied to program, because usually people go into the MPP or the MP in the mid-career, but they've created it for those people that fall kind of in between. You've got the MPID, that's really for international development and economics. So it's not just international development, but it's also economics focused. So you could do private sector economics. It's very, very quant. In fact, the mid-career, the master students take classes with the PhDs because it's very quant focused. Okay, and as I said, the rigorous quant and economic training, and it's mostly developed at economic policy and development. Phenomenal degree. Some real stellar superstars have gone through it. I do not know if it's taken a hit with all the stuff that's happened to international development space, but it is one of the most valued programs that they have at the Kennedy School and probably the most difficult to get into. And then finally, we've got their cornerstone marquee program, the MPP, which is 2 years. Typically, you have a few years of experience, 2 to 3 years of experience. Typically, the MPP is the one that people do with joint degrees, as well as the MPA2. And as well as the MPID, but definitely not the mid-career. You can't do it as a joint degree. So typically people do the MPP, especially if they have low years of experience. It's core economics, politics, ethics, management. And then they have this capstone, which is awesome, that they do while embedding themselves in a real organization. And the trick is that you get yourself in that real organization and hopefully parlay that into a full-time job with that organization. So you kind of pick wisely. So it's aspiring policy professionals, analysts, and leaders. I think it's one of the best programs that they have at the Kennedy School. All right, those are the different degrees that you have. And then here's kind of an overview of the different components of the application. You've got standardized testing. Transcripts, the TOEFL exams, if applicable. You've got the resume, typically 2 pages. Everybody has to do it. You've got 3 letters of recommendation and a scaled score. Everybody has to do it, right? And I typically advise people, and we'll talk about letters of recommendation in a different webinar, but the idea here is that the recs typically, if you're an MPP, should be at least 2 academic and 1 professional, if possible. If you're a mid-career, it's 2 professional, ideally 1 academic, but in most cases, people can't even get an academic if they've been out of school for like 10, 15 years. But those are like on the spectrums and everything kind of in between. But typically it's academic, professional, and or like a volunteer experience that you had that somebody can write about, and that would typically be your third. But you always should have at least 1 academic, at least 1 professional if you can help it. So you can show your academic prowess and your ability to kind of interpersonal skills, management skills, analytical skills outside just purely academic environment. But you super want to have something where someone, subjective third-party perspective, can show your abilities, and it bodes beautifully with your application materials themselves. And then you've got the essays. For the MPID, it's 5 essays, a bio and background statement. For the MPA2, it's 6 essays. For the mid-career, it's 6 essays. For the MPP, it's 6 essays. I think the 6 essays in this case, I'm also including the optional statement, which I recommend most people to write unless you've got absolutely nothing to describe about any weaknesses in your application or any pitfalls. All right, so that's an overview of that. And we'll start breaking down some of these essays in future webinars as well. Maybe my colleague can post the next webinar in here so that you guys can join that as well and sign up. All right, who are we? These are some of the experts I have. Some of them have graduated from the Kennedy School. Some of them have done other policy degrees, PhDs, law degrees, are absolutely phenomenal. A group of experts that really are just trailblazers in the field. So we're really have diverse backgrounds to kind of speak to people's different experiences. We've got people that are academically accomplished, absolutely phenomenal people that make me look like I'm a slacker, and people with real world experience, which I think is important because it kind of allows them to think outside of just purely academics, but how the world of profession can get into the academic perspective as well. And last but not least, I want to kind of quickly describe, we worked with a cohort of students that for many years were only able to get up to 3 applicants in 1 year. We worked with them, mandated to try to help that cohort of students get up to 4 applicants into the Kennedy School. And we exceeded that expectation so much that we got 10 people into that program, into the Kennedy School, which was absolutely phenomenal. This is just one of the testimonials of one of the people from that cohort. It was really, really one of the kind of like vindications of our success as a company. And on the back of that, as I said, I wrote the book so that I could help other people really kind of democratize the access to folks to have the ability to apply to the Kennedy School in terms of stuff. Now, if you email us first person to email us will get the guidebook for free. It's a $30 value, even though I think it should be a lot more than 30 bucks, but we brought it down to 30 bucks for you. You get the absolutely free, and you get a talk with me if you can deal with that. As you can tell, I'm high energy, high octane, intense. So I'm going to give it to you as you need to hear it in terms of your chances, in terms of how to really maximize your candidacy to get into the program, and do that. So feel free to send us an email to info@righttrackadmissions.com. My colleague wrote that in the chat, or you can call us 323-628-1640. We're based in Los Angeles, but we're obviously a global company without people everywhere. So that's it. Phenomenal. I'm so proud of myself. I was able to finish that in under 29 minutes. So it was perfectly placed. Let me know, guys, if you have any questions before we close things out. Otherwise, you have our email, you have our number. Email us. You can get the guide for free, and you get a opportunity to speak with me about your candidacy and your profile. All right, I think we are good to go, guys. I think my colleagues were going to post this on YouTube as well for our limited time, so you can also share this with others that may have missed this session. All right, guys, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you, and looking forward to hopefully hearing from you and working with you on your application to the Kennedy School and getting you into this incredible life-changing program. Thank you all.